Arlen, as you mentioned, TMAS is a publicly traded mineral exploration company located both in Vancouver, BC, and Montreal, Quebec. We have two mineral exploration properties located in Quebec, north and east of Quebec City. We're exploring for ilmenite deposits containing titanium, iron ore, and vanadium. Our ticker symbol on the CSE is TMAS, and on the OTCQB, TMASF. And we are also listed on the Frankfurt Exchange under the symbol 26PO. The information contained in this presentation will eventually be found on our website at temasresources.com. So we have a forward-looking statement on the presentation. And first slide is basically why invest in TMAS. Well, there are many reasons from my perspective. Firstly, we're focused on advanced titanium mineral exploration projects in Quebec. Quebec is a mining-friendly province, as we all know, and titanium dioxide is a metal that's in constant demand, and Quebec is home to the world's largest titanium ilmenite deposit operated by Rio Tinto. That's the Lac Tio mine. We currently have two projects, Blache and Lac Brule. Lac Brule has recently filed its PEA in early 2024. Blache has recently filed its PEA in 2024, and Lac Brule has plans to drill this upcoming year. And upon completion of this drilling program, we should be in a position to file the PEA on this property. We have advanced our metallurgy on the projects, and we have a patented chloride leaching technology that was originally developed out of the University of Minnesota, and it yields a very high quality 99.8% TiO2 product. We also have patents on this technology, and this technology can be licensed to other groups in the future for a revenue stream. The ORF technology, or chloride leaching technology, is both cost-effective and it's environmentally positive because we not only does the chloride leach happen at low ambient temperatures, but also we're reusing over 95% of our reagents in the process. And finally, our corporate structure, we've just last year completed a 9-for-1 consolidation. We have roughly 26.6 million shares outstanding, 38.1 million fully diluted. Management owns around 21%, and we have 40% plus owned by friends, families, and associates. Our projects as I mentioned, we're located in Quebec. The Blache project is located about 130 kilometers northwest of Baie-Comeau, and the Lac Brule project is located about 150 kilometers northeast of Saguenay. So they're there on the Quebec. They're serviceable by helicopter. They have good highway access nearby. The plan is to build a 4-season road to the project as part of the feasibility study. But right now we have a good winter road access to the properties and logging road access in the summer, good local mining labor force, access to deep water port in Sept-Îles on the St. Lawrence. And of course, the projects are located in a very mining-friendly area of Quebec that's serviceable by Baie-Comeau, Port-Cartier, Saguenay, and Sept-Îles. In summary, I think we've got a good project with both Blache and Lac Brule, and it's got good infrastructure within Quebec. So here's another map showing the exact projects and where they are compared to the highways in Quebec. The Blache property is our priority project. It's 171 mineral claims large, about 9,400 hectares, and we've accomplished about 15,000 meters of drilling. The first successful PEA that we've completed was in early 2024. I'll explain the results later on in this presentation, but that was the first lens that has a 14-year mine life associated with it. But we've just recently acquired the rest of the mining camp in the area and the surrounding area that has 2 additional historic resources that we're looking to also include in our resource calculation eventually. So we have an inferred resource calculation on this project right now. So the area itself has been mined considerably over the last 30, 40 years. And of course, we know that the Rio Tinto has been an operator in Quebec for close to 70 years at the Lac Tio mine. which is a titanium iron oxide mine that's been in operation for close to 70 years. So our PEA that we have on the project, on the Blache project, it has a 208 million ton inferred resource. Of that resource, we have 25.6 million tons of contained TiO2 and 86.5 million tons of contained iron oxide. The overall titanium concentration of both the semi-massive rind that sits over top of the project and the massive oxide deposit that we have is roughly 16.7%. It's a very large project in Quebec. Like I mentioned before, the ORF technology was developed at the University of Minnesota, helped us get the metallurgy right so that we can extract the TiO2 out of this deposit. Next. So the economics of the PEA, important for the investor. We have an NPV8 of 6.6 billion for the project and a post-tax IRR of 60.8%. The projected CapEx payback of this project is 25 months, and the initial CapEx projected is about $1.1 billion. The life of this mine, and this is just the first lens of 3 that are on our lands there, that we have is about 14 years. And there is a possibility that we expand that later as we drill out and claim the resource under those other lenses that exist on the property. Right now, Temas has a $3.5 million market cap. So I think that we're well positioned for growth in overall economic value of the company as we get the results out for this and as we transfer our technology and also look at extracting vanadium and chromium out of the metallurgy. So our second project is the Lac Brule project. It is also a titanium, iron ore, and vanadium project. It's 36 claims large. It's about 2,000 hectares, so a little bit smaller than the Blache property. We've drilled over 10,000 meters to date on this project, and that there is probably another 1.5 to 2,000 meters needed for a PEA to get to the inferred resource calculation. What does this site have that's comparable to the Blache project? Well, the mineralization is nearer to surface, similar to the Blache project. It's of higher grade than our Blache project, but the deposit itself is smaller. It's still valuable. It's roughly about 40% the size of Blache. And there's a historic resource estimate on site with 2 mineralized lenses. A good project. We're looking to bring this up to PEA status over the next year. I mentioned earlier about our metallurgy and how that we control the IP of our metallurgy. Very important for a titanium dioxide deposit in Quebec. Our metallurgical process is both low cost and high value. It's a chloride leaching process that operates at near ambient temperatures, and we currently recycle over 95% of the reagents, making it relatively low in overall operating costs. Demonstrated at a pilot stage, we've run over a ton of material through this process, resulting in about 880 kilograms of pure 99.8% TiO2. We look to expand upon the economics of this overall metallurgical process by extracting the vanadium and chromium that both occur on the project in economic value. And we've recently hired a world expert in VTM metallurgy to help us with this process, and I'll introduce him a little bit later on in the presentation. So next, what is TiO2? What is titanium dioxide? It's a metal that's used, industrial compound that's used pervasively in a number of different products worldwide. Its primary use is that as a pigment. So it's used in the paint industry, the plastics industry, and the paper industry. It's a highly reflective metal, so therefore it brightens up and is used as a brightener for all of these uses in the pigment industry. 10% of the overall titanium dioxide is developed into what we would call a titanium sponge or a titanium metal product, further refined into metal. And that's primarily used within the aerospace and medical industries. Titanium dioxide is biocompatible, so it's used in various dental implants and medical implants, but it's also a very strong alloy, and that's why as a metal it's used in the aerospace industry, light and very strong. But as I mentioned before, 80% of its uses are in the paint and pigment industry, and essentially that's one of the benefits of our end product, in that it's used kind of with a variety of different consumer products in a variety of different uses. The market for the TiO2 globally is fairly stable and growing, and it grows with the overall economy. So how is the market growing? What's the market size? I mentioned already it's in the currently in around $20 billion US mark worldwide. It's projected to grow to about 39 or $40 billion in about 8 years' time. It's roughly growing at 5 and 3.5%, 5.3% currently, but the expectation is that the growth rate will increase to 7.7% as we emerge from the various recessions that are happening right now globally. So China is the largest market globally. It's not only about 45% of the entire market for production, but it's also about 45% of the entire market for consuming the product as well. And it will be growing slightly faster than the rest of the market in China will be growing slightly faster than the rest of the overall global market over the next 10 years. So as I mentioned earlier, TiO2 basically grows at the same rate as the overall economy. It's kind of a one-for-one direct relationship. So it doesn't have these wild swings that you see with other commodities out there. It's used pervasively in a variety of different products, so its industrial use is very stable. And the overall titanium use in the aerospace industry also is very stable and growing. So recent news on titanium. Titanium's been in the news for a number of different reasons. One, importantly, it's identified as a critical metal that's sought after by both Canada, USA, and Europe. So it's identified as one of these strategic metals, a critical metal. So it takes advantage of some of the government incentives that have come in to increase domestic supply of these critical metals from the Inflation Reduction Act and the critical metals strategies for Canada and Europe. So what are the trends involved here? Well, the domestic supply is obviously sought, and that's why the Inflation Reduction Act and critical metal strategies exist for a lot of these Western nations. They realize that the market is dominated by two major suppliers in China and in Russia, and these are fairly unfriendly nations to the West and subject to various different trade embargoes or trade restrictions. So the current titanium market is in tight supply. I think that with China and Russia controlling 60% of the global 50-60% of the global supply of the metal, it is very concerning. And also that there are two major TiO2 mines that are near end of life, one in Norway and another in North America. So they've been producing for close to 60, 70 years each. They are near end of life. They'll probably be at the end of their life within 5 to 6 years from now. And it's a good timing for us because we're a very advanced mining exploration project in Quebec. And if we fast forward our production incentives and what we're doing, we could be getting our project near production in that same time frame. And of course, I mentioned earlier that titanium is subject to geopolitical risk. There are trade wars and actual wars happening with China and Russia, and that will not bode well for the near term for titanium dioxide getting the product in and the metal refined. So our team is well established as in the mining field. Our chairman is Kyler Hardy. He's got 20+ years experience. He's a natural resources entrepreneur. He's been involved in various mining, forestry, solar projects, oil and gas over the years. He has infrastructure experience and is a financier and early investor in Temas Resources. He actually put the project together and listed the public company on the CSE. David Robinson, former MNP auditor and CPA. He's also a former member of the TELUS Pension Fund team, our current CFO and director. Myself, a president and CEO. I've got 25 years experience with high growth ventures and hyper growth ventures. I'm a former venture capitalist and investment banker, and I have my CPA and MBA as well. I mentioned David Caldwell and Danny Dutton. They're our operations and metallurgical leads. David Caldwell, we brought on earlier part of this year as our Chief Operating Officer. He has 35+ years experience as a geologist, geophysicist, and geochemist. Very successful person. One of the main reasons why we brought David on is that he has taken VTM deposits in Quebec through to feasibility. And that's the next stage of our growth, is to take our project through to feasibility. So he'll be an incredible asset in that regard. Danny Dutton, world-renowned metallurgist for VTM deposits. He's a metallurgical and chemical engineer, and he's previously worked with David Caldwell at Blackrock Metals. So we're really happy to bring Danny on in this critical time for the company. And of course, we've got Veronique Laberge as a director. She also is a CPA. She's a director and CFO of several public and private mining companies in Canada. And she's, of course, located in Quebec. So this is a chart that shows the comparable companies to us and why we're, I guess, undervalued with regards to our deposit. And we are the most advanced North American TiO2 deposit currently, and we're undervalued based on these comparable values, especially given that we have a PEA stage and a world-class asset. We're, I think, directly comparable to the Titan Discovery Group and Empire Metals, which both have market values of about 30 and 67 million respectively. And they are actually at an earlier stage of development than we are. And I think that our aspirations are to grow the business to a point where we're closer to Hyperion X, Base Resources, or Sovereign Metals. They're all ASX listed issuers, and they're in the 200 to 300 million market cap range, as you can see, and as they work towards projects at the feasibility stage. I mentioned earlier, we have a really good corporate structure because of the recent consolidation. I think that clearly we're undervalued for what we have in the ground. Our plan will be to enact an aggressive marketing and promotion campaign to get the word out that we are relevant and have a world-class asset, and that we've been basically building our team over the last 6 to 8 months. And I think that we're ready to break out on the world stage right now. This upcoming November, you'll see us at a variety of different conferences in London, Switzerland, and also in New Orleans. So again, 20% insider ownership, and we have a very tight capital structure with about 26.7 million shares outstanding. And I think that's kind of the company in a nutshell. We have a BC office and a Quebec office, so happy to take your questions.
Yeah, perfect. Again, audience, if you got some questions for Tim, just please pop them in the Q&A. Tim, I want to look at that comp slide. Why is it all out of Australia? Do they just know titanium better than we do?
Australia is a big market for titanium dioxide and has been for a number of years. A lot of the larger producers are Australian listed companies. Yeah. They do have an affinity and knowledge of titanium dioxide. I think that in Canada in particular and the US, we are not large producers of titanium dioxide, apart from the Rio Tinto mine at Lacteo. But I think this is an emerging area. And again, why we're sort of undervalued, I think, is because we can get the word out about what a great world-class project we have, and the investor or the shareholder can take advantage of that because we're just not looking for these types of deposits right now in North America. But that's all changing with the world landscape that we're on right now.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting was the pricing. It's like how predictable it is to like the GDP.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty incredible.
Like demand is directly related to it. I think that the commodity price has been growing recently in terms of, and that's just reflected in the tight supply on the world stage. But yeah, so we've got a very stable commodity that's in high use in multiple uses, and it's a project that I think that needs to be carried forward, especially because we've got a couple mines that are near end of life that need to be I guess put to bed, and new mines need to be put in place.
Question from the audience here. When are you looking to do an updated PEA for Blache?
So Blache has the PEA done on it. Our plan is to go into feasibility. So we want to do a pre-feasibility. What we've done is we've looked at the primary lens with the titanium dioxide. I mentioned earlier, the PEA is about a 14-year mine life on that first lens. But we've recently consolidated the camp around that area and all the land. So there are two other historic resources that are on our land now that we would look to include in a feasibility study. I believe the Rio Tinto's Lacteo mine, when it was first put into production, was very, very similar to what we have in terms of Blache, in terms of the size of it. And then that ended up being like a 60, 70-year mine life there, right? So
did they end up getting that 700 million from the Canadian government?
They did, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah, they've got a huge metallurgy plant that I believe down the road we can take advantage of. And of course, Rio Tinto and Kronos Worldwide are two really good examples of companies that could be partnered with our company long term. And we're, like I said earlier, our plan is to have a very strategic 3-year plan where at the end of the 3-year period, we could be in decent partnership talks with some of these companies.
If 65% of the demand for this is for pigment, is there anything that can replace it?
No, well, like titanium dioxide replaced lead in paint.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Titanium is a very reflected industrial compound.
Yeah.
It reflects light. It's used in sunscreens. It's used for brighteners. It's kind of and it's biocompatible, so it's safe in the body. It's very inert in the body. So it's the premier use for that, and it's a safe alternative to using things like lead oxide.
Yeah. Any other producers on North American soil besides Rio up in Quebec?
No other producers. There are other companies that are explorers. And like I said before, we have the most advanced North American asset for TiO2.
Yeah. Interesting. And I want you to touch base on some of that news again about if you went back that slide of Russia and Canada.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's
Right?
crazy. It's crazy that and it largely is to do with the fact that the majority of the market, the supply is coming from countries like China and Russia. So China produces like 45% of the world's titanium dioxide, but they also are a big manufacturer. Russia produces maybe 5 to 10% of the world's titanium dioxide, but they also are a big refiner into the titanium metal. So in terms of the aerospace industry, they're a big component of what is being produced in terms of metal. So, they don't use a lot of the titanium dioxide for consumer products as we do around the world, but they certainly refine it into that metal and they use it within their own aerospace industry. Yeah.
Last question here, then we're gonna have to go here. Since you put out the PEA, you guys have prioritized management, obviously, super important.
Yeah.
Where are you with this, and what pieces still need to be filled, do you think?
Yeah, so when we first got the PA out, there was a kind of a spike in price that went to like 30, 35, almost 40 cents. And I think it was the euphoria of what was going on happening in the market and the fact that this was a new story. What we really need to do is we needed to build up the team and specifically on the operations and metallurgy side. And we always had a desire to increase our presence in Quebec. So opening up the Quebec office, we've now added a bunch of Quebec-based people onto our team. The addition of David Caldwell as COO has been enormous for us. He's taken projects through to feasibility in Quebec. His knowledge base of the process and the people in there is invaluable. And of course, just adding a metallurgist to the skill set of Danny Dutton is really key to us at this stage. So I think it was important for us to build the people up so that we have the horses that we can ride into the next phase, which is taking the Blache project to feasibility. Yeah.
Do you think your biggest risk on that is the metallurgy and the processing, and that's why these guys are so important on that?
You know, it really is. But there are talented people worldwide. So like we want to get our metallurgy and our final product to a state where we could partner with a Rio Tinto or a Kronos Worldwide. And then they would take it to the next level, I guess, to use within the products that they're selling to other people. So we want to make sure that we extract all the value out of our rock.
Yep.
So, you know, right now we've got the titanium and iron oxide, which is, you know, the bulk of the volume there. You know, that we have a really great environmentally aware and conscious process for it. And at the same time, you know, if we were to extract vanadium, which we have in small quantities on the project, but you know, measurable, and chromium and some of the other smaller metals that we have there, then we have a really robust process. And that's why we have Danny Dutton in place.
Right on. Tim, looking forward to seeing how next year unfolds for you.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great year for us. I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah, thanks for your time very much, and we'll chat to you again.
Okay, thanks, Arlen.